plants will unalive you. That's a claim that's been tossed around all over the internet. And the word that usually comes up when people start talking about plants unaliving you is anti-nutrients. Also better known as defense chemicals that plants are using to defend themselves against pathogens or insects. And if defense chemicals are harmful for insects, then they must also be harmful for humans. That's the claim made by these people that are telling you to avoid eating plants. But is it actually true? Well, today we will take a deeper look at many of these so-called anti-nutrients. We will take a look at lectins, oxalates, phytates, goitrogens, phytoestrogens, and tannins. So that by the end of this video, you know what they are, what they do, what they don't do, and where you can find these so-called anti-nutrients. Let's start with lectins. The word lectins and beans within those people fall into the same sentence. And for good reasons, because beans are a really good source for lectin. And lectins are highly present in beans, but also in whole grain products. Did you know that roughly over 500 lectins have been identified so far? So what exactly are lectins? Well, lectins are glycoproteins. The word glyco is referring to the fact that lectins can help bind glucose to plant cells. And the claim made is that lectins will cause leaky gut. Leaky gut basically means that you have some holes or cracks in your gut lining. And through those holes or cracks, pathogens or endotoxins that shouldn't get inside your body are sickering through. And of course, these things are not really good for your health. But are lectins truly causing leaky gut? Well, in a couple of documented cases, we've seen that if you consume beans in raw form, or you consume flour made from raw beans, then indeed it can be detrimental for your gut health. However, something that many of these so-called anti-nutrients people are not telling you is the following fact. And that fact is that if you boil your beans to the point in which they get a little bit mushy or soft, you know, to the point in which you can eat them like normal beans, you can reduce lectins to almost 99.8%. And in the worst case scenario, you can only reduce them to 93 point something percent. And for that, we have great health human outcome data. And that data suggests that high legume consumption has been associated with a decreased risk for all-cause mortality. So bottom line is, don't consume raw beans and you will actually reap all the great health benefits that come with bean consumption. Next up on the list are oxalates. The most common foods that people are referring to when we talk about oxalates are spinach, Swiss chard, and beetroots. But you can also find them in taro, Swiss chard, amaranth, and other plant foods. And the claim being made here is that oxalates can basically increase your risk for gallstones and kidney stones. Is that true? One of the components of these stones is indeed oxalate and calcium. And it seems just logical that if you consume a diet high in oxalates, that your risk for building or creating these stones increases. However, we have actually evidence suggesting that a vegetarian diet that is indeed higher in oxalate can actually decrease your risk. The most important thing that you have to look out here is your calcium intake. Because calcium can bind to oxalates before it even gets absorbed in your small intestine. Meaning you can get rid of these oxalates before they even enter your body. So if you don't consume calcium alongside these high oxalate foods, then yes, you could probably increase your risk. Funny enough, if you eat enough calcium, and with enough calcium, I mean around 1 gram per day, that's 1000 milligrams of calcium every single day, you will actually decrease your risk. And by the way, animal-based foods have also been associated with an increased risk for gallstones and kidney stones. Another great fact to know is that if you want to reduce the oxalate amount within those foods, then all you have to do is cook them. Cooking them can reduce the oxalate amount by 30 to 87%. Next up on the anti-nutrient menu are goitrogens. Goitrogens basically refers to agents that can interfere with your thyroid function, and thus, of course, increase the risk for goiter or other thyroid diseases. A part of this goitrogen family is glucose inolate. Glucose inolates can be found in abundance in cabbage. And of course, it's also suggested that by cooking them, for example, you can also reduce the amount of glucose inolates in cabbage. But the real issue lies here in the amount being present in those goitrogen-rich foods, because the amount is actually so low that it could not have any significant impact on your thyroid health. As a matter of fact, research is actually suggesting the opposite here. The only kind of research we have seen so far that is suggesting that these foods are not really good for you is usually accompanied by the fact that those diets are really low in iodine itself. And of course, without iodine being present, or with not a great amount of iodine being present in our diet, the thyroid itself cannot really produce thyroid hormones T3 and T4. But if you consume iodine alongside these foods, these goitrogen-rich foods, then you can actually decrease the risk for many chronic diseases. Next up is phytates. Phytates are usually found in great amounts in legumes and whole grain products or seeds. And one of the big claims being made here is that phytates are robbing your body of minerals. And if we are talking about these minerals, the minerals that pop up are iron, for example, calcium, and also zinc. However, the studies are quite a little bit mixed. And the reason for that, in my humble opinion, is the fact that these studies are basically done with meals in isolation, meaning they gave participants one meal and they look how much of these minerals get absorbed. However, we have some studies suggesting that habitual intake of high phytate meals, meaning if those people are consuming high phytates rich foods on a daily basis or regularly throughout the week, the absorption rate gets actually better and better over time. So to look at this objectively, I would basically say that it's a little bit mixed. Now, if you basically do a CBC, so a complete blood count, and your zinc levels, your iron levels, and your calcium levels are fine, just like mine, for example, then I guess you are doing fine with your zinc intake, iron intake, and calcium intake through your diet. The next one are phytoestrogens. Phytoestrogens can primarily be found in soybeans, but also in linseeds or flax seeds. The claim here being made is that, it has the word estrogens, so it must basically be mimicking, the real hormone estrogens and its effect inside our body. And they are feminizing men. However, these people usually forget the fact that in the word estrogens, there's another word in front of estrogens, and that's phyto. Phyto means plant. If we were to translate it, it basically means plant estrogens. And we have a meta-analysis of randomized controlled clinical trials suggesting that these phytoestrogens do not have any impact on our hormone levels. As a matter of fact, there's many great health benefits that can come along with phytoestrogens. So no, unless you're one of those rare people that is consuming around 3 liters of soy milk every single day, like, reported in one case study, you will be more likely than fine, and you can actually reap all the health benefits that can come along with consuming soy or flax seeds. The last one is tannins. Tannins are secondary plant metabolites that are most commonly found in tea, coffee, wine, and even dark chocolate. And indeed, some studies suggest that tannins can decrease the absorption of iron. However, evidence suggests that if you consume, for example, tea or coffee, so foods and beverages that are rich in tannins, 1 hour after the meal, then the tannins won't have any effect on your iron absorption. There you have it. We explored many of the anti-nutrients and the claims behind it. And of course, many of these claims don't hold any ground to the scientific evidence that we have so far. What are your thoughts about this topic? Feel free to let me know in the comment section. Thank you as always for watching, and I'll see you next time.